Hello, writers. Have you ever bought a writing craft book someone says you just have to read?
Is it still sitting on your shelf? Have you even cracked the spine?
That's totally me.
Don't ask Renee how many craft books she owns.
Why do we keep buying these books we never read?
We all want to improve as writers, but that's hard to do alone.
That's why we started the Words to Write By podcast, to tackle these books together, chapter by chapter, and learn from their advice.
Or not. Sometimes they're wrong.
Hi, I'm Renee Nelson, former college writing instructor turned full-time writer and podcaster. After many years, I finally have a complete draft of my memoir.
And I'm Kim Smigado, author of the humorous fantasy novel Our Comeback Tour is Slaying Monsters, which is the first book in the Boy Bands and Dragons series, released by Riverfolk Publishing.
And now, on with the podcast. Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Words to Write By.
Welcome. We have an awesome interview for you today.
We are interviewing Kate Scott. She writes a newsletter called AI for Squishy Humans. I liked the tagline that she said that this is for creatives to use AI to help support creativity without compromising. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Kate?
Oh, thank you. Great to be here. So background-wise, I am Australian, now living in the UK. I've been working in digital marketing for a very long time and very much in tech firms. So I was bumping up against AI without actually realizing I was bumping up against AI. And, the whole generative thing came out. I found it really interesting, started playing with it. I actually, as a side hustle, teach for an adult college here in London and showed my head of computing this cool new tool. And she's like, well, how would you like to teach it? And so I've been teaching an introduction to generative AI since August 2023.
Which is ancient in terms of AI.
Absolutely. And, so many people came out of that one-day workshop going, where can we get more? That, it kind of gave birth to the AI for Squishy Humans newsletter.
So I like the idea of to support creativity without compromising. Let's expand on this. What do you think are ways that AI can help, and what ways do you think AI can compromise creatives?
So I think the biggest problem people have when they're approaching AI is they see it as a shortcut and they use it to produce the final product. Whereas where its strengths are actually in helping you get rid of blank page syndrome and kind of coming up with ideas, frequently bad ideas. Let's face it, it can be very cliched at times, but it gives you a start and it gives you something to actually work with. AIs are very, very good at pattern recognition. And then what you can do is it's got those patterns and then you as a human make meaning of it.
Like what kind of ways do people use AI shortcuts that don't work? Or can you give us some examples of that?
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate example, kind of the school students and uni students who use it to produce their entire essay or whatever. And then, of course, have no idea what they've written. And so they can't defend their arguments because they don't actually know what's gone into it and whether or not the sources or the arguments that have been used are any good.
Do you know through your teaching and all that how bad this is? Like how many students are doing this?
I think it varies a lot. Where I am, I think we're actually quite lucky in that because it's an adult education center, people are there because they want to learn. So they know it's worth their time to put the time in. And also the way we teach is to go, you know what? Using AI is a skill you need to actually get. So show it off when you use it. We actually cite our AI sources in the same way we do traditional articles and things. But I think where you're running into trouble is in the more compulsory education areas. So high school, undergraduate, university, where you have to do this. And people are like, I just can't be bothered. I'm not interested. I don't want to. And they just find the shortcut.
The fruit is so low hanging. It's very hard. It's hard for them not to use it because why not?
As a silly little aside for us in the UK, it was very easy to tell when people had used it because the output was in American spelling.
That's great.
So let's talk a little bit about some ways in which AI can help support creatives. Like what do you say the main use of AI for writers, artists, that sort of thing?
I mean, it depends on the person. If you enjoy doing certain elements of things, then you can keep doing those things and use AI for stuff you don't enjoy. I mean, like I said, it's very good at pattern recognition and organizing stuff. So, for example, for me, I use it to actually map out my projects. I've got these big things that I need to get on with, and they've got so many moving parts. And I just kind of go, brain dump, give me an organized project. It's not quite that straightforward. And I'll tell you right now, none of the AI tools have any real concept of time.
Mhm.
So if you say, okay, I need to do this and I have half an hour a week, you wouldn't believe what it thinks you can fit into half an hour.
Well, it can do it all in that period of time.
Exactly. It's a very, very enthusiastic toddler.
Ah!
Like insane levels of energy, super, super helpful, can't wait to help, and then gets flour all over the kitchen because it's just trying too hard.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's kind of like giving it the boundaries and setting the expectations and guiding it through what you want. Because, yeah, otherwise you can end up with all sorts of just crazy stuff.
Can you give an example, like for a project that you used it for, like what you fed into it and what it gave you?
Yeah, I actually do also write, as in creative writing.
Uh-huh.
And I had three different manuscripts in various different kind of levels of kind of like drafting, editing, that kind of thing. And I was just like running around in circles trying to do them all at once. And so I kind of went, right, I need a project plan for 6 months. I want to get this done, and I've got all of these things going on.
Hmm.
Give my priorities. I kind of knew what the priorities should be, but it was nice to see them reinforced. And then it was actually pulling it down into, right, step by step, week by week. And then actually pulled that across into an actual project management. I used Notion for that. Plus, I dug it down further and put it into my calendar so that I actually do have real structure, which is what works really well for my brain.
Did you feed it your drafts or you just wrote up what you wanted and told you what to do?
Yeah, just wrote up what I wanted. I mean, I have put drafts into some of them before. They tend to get a little bit confused if you're after a reverse outline for something. Probably couldn't do much more than a short novella at this stage.
Mhm.
I tend to use it more for the organizing side of things.
You're using it mostly for task management.
Yeah, absolutely. And also for marketing. Like I said, marketing background. And one of the things I really, really like doing is creating personas because it is so much easier to write up, social media posts or whatever for Emma as opposed to the 18 to 45-year-old white collar professional female living in suburban or urban small cities in the US or UK.
Yeah.
As writers, we're good at creating characters.
Yeah.
Whereas what this can do is actually give you a starting point on something that is actually reflective of the audience you're wanting to connect with.
Can you tell a little bit more about this idea of like marketing to creating an audience to who you're going to market to? Because my background is in marketing. I've heard of this before, but maybe you could explain it a bit more accessibly.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming from quite a tech background, which you can imagine they love kind of research and kind of that kind of thing. And so one of the ways you want to segment your audience is by what they call psychographics rather than demographics. It's how they think rather than their kind of age, education, income, which is still important. And so the thing is to create personas using research. For work, if I was doing this, I'd be going into census data, I'd be going into market research information, I'd be running surveys, all those kinds of things to get statistically significant data to represent the population and then my group within it. And then what I would do is kind of hone in, and find that dot at the center, which is not actually a real person, but it's kind of the average of everything. Because if I can get something that targets that person, the halo effect will mean it's relevant for the people kind of around that dot. That can take a lot of work.
Mhm.
And again, going back to the whole pattern recognition things with the large language models like ChatGPT, Claude, I really like Claude for this stuff. It's kind of got that information in there. So as a writer, if I know particularly who my comp authors are,
I see.
Yeah, who are the people who are going to, like my stuff because they read this author who's very, very similar in feel or, style and that kind of thing. And you can use it as a shortcut to start and then go, okay, who is this person? You find out kind of who this person is. And then you can sit there and go, okay, so can I sit down with Emma and have a cup of coffee and get her deep thoughts on why she reads or what she's looking for from a book? Where does she go to find out about books? Like what's her media habits? And just find all this information that may not be perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than not knowing.
That actually sounds very useful. As a writer, when I pitch my book, I say it's like this and it's like that.
Mm.
I'm going to take another example, but there's one that's like, it's like Harry Potter meets Hunger Games. So if I had that information, could I create a persona that would tell me what those readers like to read?
Absolutely. I mean, that's an interesting kind of Harry Potter meets Hunger Games, and you might want to just add a few more in to give it a bit more to kind of work with. For example, the book I've just published up on Amazon, literally on the weekend. Very excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a fantasy fairy tale retelling, and I've got 3 or 4 authors I know hit that same spot. And so, I'm able to put in this is for people who enjoy work by this author, this author, this author. And as a result, it's kind of gone, oh, yeah, I know those authors because they've been in the market for years
Mhm.
and they're very active on social media, one in particular. And so they're able to actually pull information on what that person's saying, who they're talking to, and that kind of thing, and then present me with the person that reads this stuff.
So it's looking at persons that read author A and author B and author C. It's looking at how their audience interacts with them.
You can ask that.
So it's not actually analyzing their text as much as it's looking at what their public persona is and how the public interacts with that persona.
It's more like kind of looking at, okay, so people who read, books from these people are fantasy fairy tale readers or dark academia readers, and they tend to be in this particular group. And then what it can do is go, okay, for people in this particular group, this age range, this education level, this location, and with this interest, and that's where the demographic starts coming in. But it'll tell you, okay, these people will spend their time on these media channels. So, don't bother with LinkedIn for a fantasy fairy tale retelling. You kind of want to be on Instagram, TikTok, possibly Facebook. If you've got some really pretty pictures, pop them on Pinterest. It's giving you the outline of who is where, when. And that's another key thing. If you post at the wrong time on these platforms, you're lost. So to understand what time of day and what day of week people are likely to be looking at stuff, people quite often will kind of, scroll through Instagram as they're getting ready for bed. It's kind of a wind down. Not recommended by sleep analysts, but it's what people do.
So this is interesting. So one, this could be used for writers, especially self-published authors, right? If they're trying to market their own book, this would be really helpful for them.
Mm,
Like, okay, who are my readers? What are they listening to? It could also be really good for like querying agents
yeah,
because you have to write like book proposals. And a lot of that is summary, but it's hard. It's very targeted summary. And also sometimes you have to, well, depending on the kind of book you're writing, especially if it's like a nonfiction book, you have to kind of do some of the, oh, this book sold this much and this book sold this much. And my book is very similar to such book.
yeah,
So I think AI would be really, really good for that.
really good. And again, it depends on your tools too, because that's one of the things. It's not one tool to rule them all. I do this with all the personas I'm playing with, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, is I'll probably start in Perplexity, which is kind of a cross between ChatGPT and a Google search.
Uh-huh.
So what it does is it actually goes through and it looks through all these websites and it lists all the websites it references, and then it gives you a summary.
Oh, that's nice.
So you can actually check the results.
Can you give an example here? Like what kind of website pulls from what would tell you?
Yep. So say I say to it, how can I improve my ability to write the meet cute in a romance? It'll come through and it'll go, okay, well, with the meet cute, it needs to have, these particular things. And you want to make sure that your characters are properly kind of, realized and understand what this is and kind of go through that. And then it'll have sources and it'll have a whole bunch of websites where it's actually got that information, kind of mushed it together, summarized it. So you can then go back to those websites and go, oh, okay, yep, I can see where they've got that from and go a little deeper if you want to. Because, of course, one of the key issues with AIs is hallucinations. Like it makes stuff up. It's one of the key things I'm always with my students. Please remember these tools are designed to be helpful, not accurate.
Right.
Always check. And Perplexity makes it easy to check. And that gives you your numbers. It gives you your initial kind of like industry benchmarks and kind of comparison points and things. And what you can do is then take that information and either use it to input into something like ChatGPT or Claude, which are my two favorites for this. And Claude is actually just bringing in web search now. So they're kind of more even again.
Oh, just a quick aside. I've been using Claude without web search. I mean, I use it often for like analysis of text. Is it going to be reaching out to more websites than when it's doing that kind of thing?
No, because you'll find both with ChatGPT and Claude, you kind of have to push it. I mean, Claude, I haven't done it yet because it hasn't rolled out to the UK yet. But certainly with ChatGPT, you sort of have to prompt it to search. It doesn't automatically go there.
It's like a student. No, move further. Look at further stuff.
Yeah. It's like that. Just stay focused. I mean, particularly, if you're wanting it to summarize a document, you want it to focus on the document.
Right. This whole idea of personas. I think you touched on this. Have you used it, or do you know how like an author would use it to create characters? They're like, okay, I have this protagonist, and I have this story, and I need them to have a sidekick, right? Would the things that you're talking about, the strategies you're using for marketing and for other things, would that be good for like designing a character with like a voice and stuff?
You could, yeah. I mean, what I would do with that is probably push it quite hard.
Mm.
Depending on what you're putting in, you may bring in some archetypes and some tropes and things like that. But then you'd want to be pushing it kind of to go, and can we have some non-obvious traits or things like this? So you'd want to kind of push it that bit further. And the other thing I do actually is put that into multiple models. So I'd see what ChatGPT said, and then I'd pop the same thing into Claude and probably into Gemini and even potentially Mistral as well, and just see what comes out of all of them. They'll be similar in some elements, but some of them go, oh, I like that with that.
Yeah.
We did an episode where we used AI to help brainstorm story ideas. And the problem we ran into was it took over.
Yeah.
It did everything. And there was no room for us to manipulate through. Like if I need a sidekick character, how do I keep it from giving me an entire backstory of that side character? If I just want like some ideas to spark or I want to mix and match stuff, how do you hold it back?
I would probably ask for 5. I would say, can you please give me a suggestion for 5 different sidekick characters with these particular elements? So if you ask for a list, by nature, it's going to have to summarize.
I suppose if you asked for 20, then it would even be shorter.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I would always say that actually, always go for more than you need because you're going to find some interesting ones as you get through because it's going to go through the standard, obvious, cliched stuff. And then it'll actually start making unexpected connections.
To fill the quota. That's interesting. Interesting.
I know early on I was playing around with some stuff and I was trying to get an analogy of 2 people that didn't get along very well. And it, of course, gave me oil and water and all that stuff. But then it pulled up like it was like a chicken talking to a duck, which turned out to be a Chinese analogy of like, 2 birds that both are birds. The idea was that, chickens can talk to chickens, ducks can talk to ducks, but the 2 can't get to communicate. And I just thought that was fantastic. I haven't figured out how to use it because I had to cut it from that draft.
That's a good one, yeah.
And I've never really seen it be quite that brilliant since.
Oh, look, there is some stuff. I mean, I've actually got some images I've got saved from when DALL-E was DALL-E 2.
Yeah.
And I've just not had anything quite as creative since.
Interesting.
They're not pretty, but they're creative.
How about using images for stuff? I find I work by visuals quite a bit. And If I can, I like to get real references, but I'm going to be working on a scene that involves a haunted opera house sort of thing. And so I was throwing in questions about like, what would a haunted opera house by Dolly look like? With some examples. And I was getting some interesting things, but what kind of stuff can authors use, the visual tools? And what visual tools do you like to use and what are the limitations and such?
So, I mean, absolutely they can be used. And it's interesting because they've literally this week taken a massive leap forward. Chat GPT within the actual Chat GPT, it's not Dolly, it's a new multimodal thing within the chat itself. I think it's only paid at the moment because it got so popular, they had to delay rollout. But it's actually generating images, but in a different way to how the other image generators have been doing it, which makes it a lot easier to edit. So, if you kind of say to it, right, can you give me an image of a haunted opera house, built in the Victorian era? Dear God, they're bad at history, by the way.
Mhm.
And, blah, 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 blah. And it gives you this thing, and you go, could you please remove the random Dalek sitting in the middle of the
Ah!
stage? And it will. Whereas, some of the other image generators, it's actually kind of hard to go, can you just so that's the Chat GPT thing. But the others that I use, I mean, I do tend to use DALI a bit, and you can use that either through Chat GPT or through Microsoft. So the Microsoft Copilot, which obviously is based on the OpenAI AI products, will actually give you images. My favorite is actually Ideogram, which is Ideogram, because it's the best at putting text into image.
Mm,
And because I quite often want words in image and I, want things like, apple spelt with two P's, not three,
yes.
things like that. That's where ideogram tends to do quite well. So I tend towards that one. I mean, the benchmark everyone talks about is Midjourney.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I tend not to use that because it's paid only. And obviously, as a teacher of introductory level, I need to know what people can do for free.
Mhm.
And so I tend to steer away from that. But what's really useful with Midjourney, with Ideogram, pretty much all of them, Adobe Firefly, which is also a really good one, they all of them have galleries of images people have created that you can actually go, oh, I like that image. Either hover over or click into it, and you can see the prompt.
Ah,
So
yes.
you can learn from what you like the look of.
Mhm.
And I think that can be really helpful. Midjourney is an interesting one because a lot of the early users were actually photographers. And so Midjourney has a lot of photographic directions in its prompts. So a lot of people use them. And so you'll go in, you see these huge prompts with all these weird numbers and ratios at the end because they're bringing in photographic stuff. That's the best way to actually learn how to do it is jump in and see what you like. But, a quick template is subject, context, style, just kind of the same for large language models as well. But what do you want to see? And what do you want them to be in? And how do you want to actually show it up?
Are there other tools, like you said, tools that are free that you think would help independent writers promote their book, market their book, that sort of thing?
So I think those are kind of the big ones. A random tool kind of that sneaks into my daily life far more often than I thought it would is a lovely site called Goblin Tools.
It's cute.
It's great. It's actually a website with all these little kind of AI tools. The thing I first came across was a thing called Magic To-Do List, where you kind of sit there and go, need to market a book I've just published on Amazon. And then you click the little kind of like magic wand button and it gives you a to-do list. So you've got the tasks, and not all of them will be right, and they'll be missing some, and some will be wrong. But again, it gives you a start. And so often you kind of sit at that stuff and you're just paralyzed because you don't know what your first step needs to be.
Hmm.
It makes a huge difference.
That is the case because when you work for somebody and you get stuck, they say, well, just do this thing. And that it clears everything else. Like, okay, I don't have to think about the rest stuff. I'll just do this particular task that I should do. And in this case, it basically gives you a list and maybe you can pick out like the one thing that you feel like you could handle and do today and then leave the rest for later.
Absolutely. So yeah, it was actually developed for neurodivergent people.
Hmm.
And it's got other things in there For example, you can put the text for your kind of work email into it and say, can you please make this more formal?
Mhm.
And it, puts it out in corporate speak, which I have a friend who is a very sweary Australian who's now working for a financial company here in the UK. And she's like, you have just saved my career.
I just pulled it up because I was just so I love the word goblin. I was like, okay, I gotta know, I gotta know. So I'm on there right now, and there is a tab that says judge, and it pulls up and it says the judge. Am I reading the tone of this?
Yeah.
And then you put in the text, and I guess it will tell you.
Yeah, it does.
Oh my God, where has this been all my life?
It is a lovely, lovely tool. It really is. And just so unexpectedly helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So here's the thing I'm thinking about is that if you have AIs to help you manage your social media posts, to help you time your social media posts, to help you, direct where you want them to go and to keep you on task to make sure you're posting, and other people are doing this too, it's going to increase the social media posts out there, right? In a way, are we kind of defeating ourselves because once everyone starts using this, there'll be way too much for anybody to look at?
I think there's already way too much for anyone to look at. One of the things that we need to watch out for is that, we're talking about this here now and talking about how, you use it for your ideas and to support you, but you put out the final version. So many people just kind of, much like the shortcutting on the school essays, just get it to generate the actual post and throw that out there. And they just don't go down well. People can tell. They don't even necessarily know they can tell. But this is one of the things I think where it gets really, really important is you can use it to kind of like give you a bit of a kind of a step up or something to stand on in order to then really communicate you and your humanity, your unique creativity, your story. And that's what the cut through is. That's where the difference is. Again, I'm going to go back to the book I put out on the weekend. I deliberately chose a cover artist who has a very, very distinct style. So while my book cover ticks all the boxes in terms of the genre it's in, it is very distinct because this is how she does things. And not that I'm biased, but it's gorgeous. She does beautiful things with light. That for me is like, yes, I am adhering to, channel, timing, topic, audience, blah, 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 but I'm doing it in a way that kind of shows me. And I'm doing that through a human creative way.
Right, because you're working with a human to do your book cover
Yeah.
as opposed to people that shortcut and don't. So now you've got the book cover and it's beautiful and you want to promote it on your social media. What parts do you let the AI help you with and what parts do you step in and make it you? Can you break it up?
So, first up, suggesting channels, which from my audience, they're suggesting Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Now, I don't have the energy for TikTok. I just don't. So I'm like, okay, I am going to step away from that. I may try it later, but I will do stuff that works on Instagram and Facebook, which frankly, it's mainly Instagram. But if you've got Instagram, you may as well do Facebook as well because you can do it both at the same time. And so I'm looking at that. Facebook, the Meta business suite thing at the back end actually is really good at helping you time your posts and things like that. It actually will tell you your followers are most active at this on this day at this time.
Hmm.
And so, that helps you in terms of, working out your timings, things like that. And then, you may use your large language models to suggest your content pillars. What three big chunky buckets of information or content should I focus on? Because you want to be able to kind of discuss things that are relevant to your books, your brand, that kind of thing. But you don't want to talk about the same thing every single post. It can help you with that. It can potentially help you with seeds of ideas. But again, you don't want it to do the final post. And actually, one of the best things I found was to help with this. It was actually from, I think it's Pete Huang, who does AI newsletter called The Neuron. And he said, what you do, just Google or ask Perplexity for a whole bunch of hooks, the 5 best ways to, or myth, truth, or, things like that, things that actually kind of spark a hook to get people into your topic. And then you actually have what he calls beliefs. So enemies to lovers tropes is the most popular trope in fiction. Oh, sorry, in romance fiction. Yeah. Romantasy is kind of building faster than some other kind of genre at this stage. And you kind of, you go through these beliefs. And what you can do is go, okay, preferred LLM. Here is a set of hooks. Here are a set of beliefs. Please randomly match two together and give me the first couple of sentences of a post. So again, you've got rid of blank page syndrome.
Right. And you're also limiting. Give me the first two sentences. Does it follow that?
Yeah, pretty well actually.
Okay.
And also, I mean, it depends on the tool. ChatGPT is very enthusiastic.
Okay.
Yeah, it does do a lot.
Claude can be a little more restrained.
So you're a novelist. You're part of the writing community, the creative writing community. So I'm assuming you understand pantsers versus plotters, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Say somebody is a pantser. Like, what AI tools do you think would be most useful for them?
I tend towards being more of a pantser.
Uh-huh.
And for me, sometimes it's okay, I'm kind of coming into this scene or this area, and it can be anything from can I use an image generator to help me with, the setting? Or holy hell, what am I going to call this random side character? And I'll
Mm,
jump into one of them and go, give me 10 options with these particular kind of parameters on it. I still end up in the baby naming sites. It's more fun. But
yeah.
I always like to track years so I can say the character was born in 1981. What are the most likely names?
yeah, absolutely.
How about a plotter?
With plotters, I mean, you can do things like get it to actually start giving you a scaffolding, have it kind of pull elements together, not necessarily actually kind of plot out. I mean, there's a couple of tools that will do that for you, but I don't know that they're going to do it in your way.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key thing. You want to actually do something that you feel is yours.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you're an outliner. You want to do an enemies to lovers plot,
Hmm.
and the outline will give you the beats that you might have.
Yep.
You obviously don't want to use that. It's saying that they should meet with a confrontation here. And you say, well, how about if their first confrontation is great and the second meeting is the confrontation? Then
Mhm.
is that kind of the iterative process going back and forth with it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's where you really hit your strengths with a lot of the large language models is the conversation.
Mm.
Yeah, I've got a friend who has this kind of summary thing on what people think generative AI is or using generative AI is and what it actually is. And it's like, yeah, single break prompt is not actually the best way to use a generative AI tool. Start with something and then have the conversation. I mean, my absolute favorite first prompt, particularly for something big, is to kind of like go, this is what I want to get out at the end of this, a project plan, kind of whatever. Brain dump, and then go, what other information do you need to help me do this?
Mm.
And then it'll say, I want to know this. And so you answer all those questions, and then you do really start getting something that is tailored to you, to what you need, and can be developed further.
When we do these podcasts on the AI, I either go away feeling, really great or feeling really, really bad. This is actually making me feel better, I think,
Oh, good.
because it's not quite so dire as some of our other podcasts were.
Right. So the thing we do that our shtick in the podcast is that we read and discuss writing advice books, and then we're like, okay, we'll apply it to our own writing, or we'll discuss whether this is good advice or not good advice. Do you think ChatGPT or Claude or any of these AI models are good for asking for advice? Like, say someone's a beginning writer and they're like, I know I have a really hard time with dialogue. Do you think it would give good, accurate advice on how to develop dialogue?
I think it can.
Okay.
And in fact, I've actually done that recently.
Oh.
The next manuscript I'm working on is one which I've done draft one, but there's a very strong romance arc in it, and it's just not working. And I'm like, I need to
Mm.
learn how to write romance properly. I actually bounced between this one was actually Claude and Google Gemini. And then I actually got their outputs and then put both into Claude to get a final. But I said, right, can you please create a DIY romance writing course for me?
Okay.
Oh,
Where I've got 14 half-hour sessions where it goes through the different elements of writing romance, and it gives me kind of a theory thing with a little bit of an outline,
yeah.
and then an activity, and then a reflection question.
What?
I then also put it into ChatGPT to get a discussion. That's actually been quite good because ChatGPT sometimes brings in examples. So you can kind of get your example books to read. And then I will actually also put it in Perplexity to get resources. So what websites can I actually dig deeper on this? And so, yeah, I actually now have this really nice thing I need to put up on my website of a DIY romance writing course.
Oh my God.
Wow. So first you write your craft book on how to write the book that you want to write, and you follow that to write the book.
Pretty much, yeah.
This is where me and Kim come in, where we have to look at it and evaluate, like, is that good advice? Where is that advice coming from? What's the AI model that has, it comes up with all the sources?
That's Perplexity.
Okay, so Perplexity would tell you, well, you're getting your advice from this one rando blog because it's not getting it from advice books and it's not necessarily getting it from other authors, right? It's getting it from people saying that they think they know, right?
Well, I mean, this is where it's interesting because I've pasted the links in for the resource lists for every day
Yeah.
because it averages like 20 to 30 different websites.
Uh-huh.
And it'll be some that you recognize, like, there'll be kind of Savannah Gilbo, there'll be K.M. Weiland, there'll be Jericho writers here in the UK,
Uh-huh.
Reedsy, and then some other ones which I haven't noticed before. But again, I'm going through this and go, oh, actually, that's really good advice. Or this one's a little basic for me, but they're all there for me to kind of, have a look at and evaluate for myself.
Have you started using this guide yet?
Yep, I finished the kind of the whole thing today.
Very cool.
It's been really fun, and I've kind of like been bouncing in and out, kind of making notes, and I do feel like I am better prepared to go back into this, darn romance arc and actually make it work.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll get it up onto the website and send you a link.
Yeah.
You'll see exactly what I'm saying here. It thinks I can do an awful lot in half an hour.
That's crazy. Like essentially you're like, I want to write a novel. What are the steps I can do it and then make me a schedule? Then you can turn around and then do the do it yourself thing with the activities. And then you can integrate that into like the calendar. Well, so give me a breakdown of when I should be practicing my craft versus, what elements and integrate that into the novel so it all kind of gets done at the same time.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah, that'd be a lot of toing and throwing and integrating, but totally.
That's true. That's true. Well, it would be like the ultimate secretary, right?
Yes.
If you needed a secretary to help you get through the novel writing process.
Yeah, that'll probably happen around the end of the year as, these agentic AI stuff starts really actually being agentic.
So that was my next question. I'm not going to ask you to predict like beyond a year. In the next 6 to 9 months, what new writing tools or new AIs are going to come out that are going to change things or things that we should keep our eyes on?
So I think it's still within kind of those big large language models that we're talking about here. And it's, yeah, the agentic thing where at the moment you kind of have the conversation, then you go and do the stuff. Whereas, what they're pushing towards now is that you tell it what you want to have done, and then it goes and does it. And it's still very, very early days, but that has the potential of going, can you please work with my Google Calendar, Outlook Calendar, whatever, to schedule in at least 2 hours of writing across each week. It can be in, across any number of days, but can't be for shorter than 15 minutes. And it goes through and it sees what you've got already programmed in there and slots in your times and things like that. As that gets more capable, then yeah, it can help you kind of better organize your tasks and your time. Be interesting to see how fast that comes up and how much people are likely to trust it with their day-to-day lives. Because I don't know about you, but I really do not want AI shopping for me at this stage.
Right. And the other part about it is the issue that I know that Apple came up with was that their AI had access to stuff. And then when it had access to the emails, they were worried about getting an attack.
Mm.
Basically, the AI would read something that shouldn't and could be corrupted and could screw up. So it's not just even like, letting the AI take hold of stuff. It's like letting somebody else that might get a hold of your AI take hold of stuff.
Yeah. And even not even the attack. I mean, someone else brought this up because, you do have AI companies which are fairly good, or you feel like you can actually give them a little bit more information. But even then, I'm not giving them personally identifying information, not confidential stuff, not sensitive stuff, because who knows who's going to buy that company further down the track.
Exactly. Is there a question that we didn't ask you that you thought we would, or that some kind of information that you have where it's like, well, this is pretty juicy and they didn't know this, so that you think our listeners would like?
Oh, good question. The one thing that actually, we've mentioned other tools, and there's one I forgot to mention. I kind of got too excited about Goblin Tools because it's awesome, is Notebook LM, which is a Google tool where you upload the information. It only looks at that information and then it'll do what it calls an audio overview, and everybody else is calling a podcast.
Ah, yes. That's one we're going to try out at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to try it and put it on our podcast. It'll be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I actually used it a few weeks ago to prep for a job interview. I needed to basically get my head around a very large website very fast.
Uh-huh.
So I put all these web pages in there and then got it to give me an overview of the website by going through the pages and looking at it. And it was amazing.
Nice.
I feel like it was probably invented by an extremely frustrated academic researcher.
And that one is nice because it actually just uses the documents.
That's right.
It doesn't try to make up references or things like that. It just,
Yeah. It only uses what you give it.
I have one more question. So again, our shtick is we read the writing advice books and then we discuss them. So what is your favorite writing advice book, and what was the best advice out of it? And it could be the one that you created through AI. Like, what is the book? And then what is like the best advice you got out of it? Or why? Why is that the book you like?
My favorite writing advice book is actually probably Steering the Craft by Ursula Le Guin.
Okay.
Largely because so many of these books, all of them full of really, really good advice, really good information, but her exercises are fantastic. And let's face it, the best way you learn to write is by doing writing.
that is true.
Yep. We've learned that firsthand. So of our listeners. Awesome.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Before we go, can you tell us about this new Amazon book you have up? And also, could you tell us a bit about your newsletter and how people could sign up for it?
Absolutely. My Amazon book is actually under the pen name Kat Redfern, because I can tell you right now, try Googling Kate Scott. There are way too many of us doing way too many interesting things. So Kat Redfern, and the book is called Sackcloth and Sky, and it is the retelling of a forgotten fairy tale called Donkey Skin, but I have reset it into an Arabian Nights type setting, which I had a lot of fun doing. And then, the other side of what I'm up to is AI for Squishy Humans, which is a fortnightly newsletter, bi-weekly, translating here. And so that comes out every second Wednesday and covers a quick update on what the AI industry has been up to in the past 2 weeks, and then a little bit of a look at a tool. And what I'm hoping to do over time is also kind of transform that into a use case, so you can actually see where and when and how and what, and maybe get some ideas for prompts.
Fantastic. Thank you again so much.
This was great.
Thank you. It's been great.
And good luck with the book.
Good luck with all the teaching. I know what that's like. Keep fighting the good fight.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. This was so informative.
It's delightful.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Words to Write By is produced by Renee Nelson and Kim Smiga-Otto. Our theme music is Roll Back the Carpet by Cool Cat Music. Have a great day.
Because I think people listen to podcasts mostly because they're like, I want to use that.